to Writing Works, your peek into the New York Writers Coalition's world of writers and activists in New York City. I'm your host, Gaylord Fields. Today we have a special episode devoted to the 10th anniversary of the Fort Greene Park Summer Literary Festival. Today we will hear from some of the masterminds and featured artists of this great event. Let's start with the founder and executive director of the New York Writers Coalition, Aaron Zimmerman. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Gaylord.
Hey, it's great to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So tell us, what is the special significance that Fort Greene Park itself holds for this event?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why we do it in Fort Greene Park. One, it's just a beautiful park. It's the oldest park in Brooklyn, has an amazing view. It's up really, really high. So, kids are sitting there writing, can, look out, feel, the breeze through the trees, have an outdoor space. And the park has a lot of literary history as well. So Walt Whitman was instrumental in founding the park. Marianne Moore wrote there, Richard Wright wrote part of Native Son there, and there are so many writers that live around that park, so it made a lot of sense to do it there.
I guess it's just carrying on the rich literary tradition of this special park. Definitely. And what are the various components of LitFest itself?
Well, we do 6 weeks of free writing workshops for young people we've had 5-year-olds up until 18-year-olds. So we get about 40 kids each year writing in the park for 6 weeks. And then at the end of the summer, we do the literary festival itself, where we pair the young writers with well-known authors from the community and from really forever. We've flown people in from Jamaica as well to get attention for how talented our kids are.
And what are the actual goals of LitFest?
It's a lot. It's to keep that literary history of the neighborhood alive and going and moving forward is a big part of it. And bringing up the next generation of writers as well. Our young people are really, really talented, and we want to give them a space and a forum to be heard. And then for the people that live around the park or people that come to see this, a chance to connect with the young people of today, as well as hear great readers like this year, like Sapphire and Vanessa and all the other readers that we have.
And what impact has LitFest had on the community, Fort Greene particularly?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot. When we started, there was not a lot going on in that park there was no literary events for sure. There was some film festivals and music, but it was sort of underused. And as time has gone on and the park has made a lot of improvements, more and more things come, but I think for the people that live around there, it means a lot to have that literary history recognized, to bring people in to the neighborhood, see what a beautiful area it is, and just bring poetry and other writing to a new level.
And briefly, what would you say it's been like working with members of Brooklyn's literary community?
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, Brooklyn has so many great writers. The writers that we've had in the festival that live around there. We've had Jennifer Egan, we've had Jhumpa Lahiri, both of them live within a block of the park. Colson Whitehead, so many writers that live in Brooklyn and love the park, so they're excited to get to read in the park. They basically come from being at home with their families, stroll up and get to read, and that's been amazing.
Oh, it just sounds like an amazing event. And the Fort Greene Park Summer Youth Program and Literary Festival is just one way that the New York Writers Coalition has become a part of the Fort Greene community. It's also brought about some great collaboration with a couple of other Brooklyn institutions. Let's hear from Johnny Temple of Akashic Books and Jessica Stockton Bagnulo, co-owner of Greenlight Bookstore, about this perfect marriage.
Pretty fortunate to have gotten on the ground floor with the Fort Greene Park Lit Fest. It was something that I had always wanted to sort of be a part of developing ever since I moved into the neighborhood back in 1990. I personally was always very inspired by the literary largesse of this neighborhood's history, with folks like Walt Whitman, and for me personally, Richard Wright, playing a major role in this neighborhood's literary legacy. Richard Wright wrote Some of Native Son while sitting in Fort Greene Park in the late 1930s, and that book went on to become the first nationally best-selling book by a Black American writer in world history. And that book also had a big impact on me. And then somewhere along the way, I met up with Aaron Zimmerman and the other folks at the New York Writers Coalition, and we started batting ideas around. I can't remember exactly how it grew, but it seemed like we were all excited about the idea of using the neighborhood and using the neighborhood's history and the neighborhood's present population as a way of connecting youth with literature in a way that would be meaningful to them. And so, in my mind, that's sort of how the Lit Fest got born. This sort of perfect marriage in a perfect place at a perfect time to recruit kids and pull kids towards literature with the wonderful New York Writers Coalition as the main guide.
So Greenlight Bookstore opened in Fort Greene in the fall of 2009. So by that time, the Fort Greene Park Summer Lit Fest had already been going on for 5 or 6 years. So the following summer of 2010, we started talking about, how can we get involved with the literary festival? So, I mean, for us, it was a privilege to come into this tradition that already existed. And I think really our goal with Greenlight Bookstore was to create a really neighborhood bookstore, like a neighborhood institution, a place where people meet their neighbors, it becomes part of the neighborhood's cultural life. So being part of the Lit Fest was really a big part of that for us. It was part of becoming integrated into this Brooklyn neighborhood that's really like the best kind of small town in an urban setting.
In the past 10 years, since the Lit Fest has really gotten up and running, we've seen a real reawakening of the literary life of the neighborhood. There are so many more writers living in the neighborhood now than there were 10 years ago, and there's so many more people running literary magazines, people working in the publishing business as publicists, as editors, all aspects of the publishing process. There's people living within 4 blocks of this store. Perhaps my favorite moment from Lit Fest history was Amiri Baraka's very first reading that he did. I think he did 2 readings at the Lit Fest over time. The very first one when he read his very controversial poem, Somebody Blew Up America, and the microphone sort of cut out at him during his final wail of the poem. That was very intense. And looking at the very, very multicultural audience who he was speaking to, it was very transformative.
The lineup this year, it's really great for the Literary Festival. Almost all of the writers either have read at Greenlight Bookstore or will be reading it at the store in the future, so it feels like it's this very interconnected community. The one we're probably most excited about as the store is Angel Nafis, who's one of our booksellers here at Greenlight, who's also an incredibly talented poet and performer. She hosts a quarterly poetry salon here at the store that she kind of MCs. She launched her own poetry book here, Black Girl Mansion. Every time I see her, I'm like overcome with emotion by, how powerful her voice is. Her passion and her creativity, like her gift for language is really, really incredible. So it's going to be so fun to see her up on that stage in Fort Greene Park. I feel like it's one of the markers of summer when the posters for the Literary Festival start appearing around the neighborhood, and people definitely get excited about it. We love seeing what authors are on the lineup this year. I mean, there's some fantastic readers every year. And big names, but not like your run-of-the-mill literary names, like voices from the Caribbean, from the African diaspora, from, cultures that really reflect what Brooklyn is and that reflect New York Writers Coalition's mission of, giving people a voice who don't necessarily have a voice. So I think the neighborhood really appreciates that, and I mean, it's a huge part of keeping this neighborhood kind of real.
Such a rich history here, and a great lineup to look forward to at Lit Fest. Joining us is one of this year's featured readers, Vanessa Gabb. Hi, Vanessa. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So, you're the co-founder of 5 Quarterly, the online literary project. Can you tell us about that project?
Sure. About 2 years ago, my friend and now co-founder Chrissy Van Meter and I decided we wanted to start some sort of literary project online, and we were just thinking about ways in which we can do that and to sort of stand out a little bit or attempt to stand out. And we knew we wanted, a diversity of writer, but a diversity of editor seemed something that maybe, was different and new. So we decided ultimately to come up with an online journal that publishes 5 poems and 5 pieces of fiction every quarter. And then we also have a rotating panel of guest editors, 5 of them, who we recruit. And the bottom line is they just have to love to read. And so they can, they're from across professions, and they're the ones who ultimately do the choosing.
Now, this will be your first year reading at LitFest. How did you find LitFest, or how did LitFest find you?
Gosh, well, of course I've heard of it. I've lived in Brooklyn all my life, and most recently closer to the park. And Danny Simmons was generous enough to sort of introduce me to Aaron Zimmerman, and then we had coffee, and I think we immediately realized we were speaking the same language about community and accessibility and expanding, the network. And I was more than happy to join.
And now you're a teacher in New Jersey. What would you think about the idea of importing LitFest to other places other than Fort Greene?
Oh gosh, well, I think Jersey actually has the Dodge Poetry Festival, which is the largest in the country, and they run it, I think, every other October. So that's coming up. So I think that, I think everywhere has a pocket that's doing something, perhaps not on a huge scale, but as long as there's something going on, I think that's great.
And why do you think people should come down to LitFest?
Well, I think where else are you going to get a mashup of young, serious writers, with established writers on a beautiful summer day in the park for free? I just think it's a very cool idea, and it's rich, and why miss it?
It just sounds like an amazing time, and I know that this being your first time, you'll have amazing expectations. I think they will be met and surpassed at LitFest.
I'm sure. I'm really looking forward to hearing the kids and, reading alongside, just so humbling, reading alongside writers that I've admired for a long time.
Well, it's going to be a wonderful time, and we're really happy that you're going to make your LitFest debut.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Before she takes off, here's a little LitFest preview from Vanessa Gabb.
My father and I build a family tree. He names dead people as far back as 200 years. He or she would have remembered more, he says. It is not morbid, his saying this. I want to get it all, I say, in case you are hit by a car tomorrow. This is morbid. I like the way it feels to see the blood, the tiny red bugs crossing over. I smear neither white nor black, just alive a moment ago. His eyes a little wet, allergy in the body. Who gave this away before? Is it Caribbean to be intolerant? Is it indigenous to be intolerant? Human to be of flowers and dust sent into the air? This is either very glorious or too ceremonial. I have never asked this many closed-ended questions. I hope it doesn't feel punitive to know without sounding so imperious. I am sorry something has opened into more, and I am here, thinking of all the parts of me that died at the bottom of a long night, working, and if not working, for the government, making it work in one room. The beginnings of socialism or capitalism, how well can we know ourselves in different systems of being? Question, answer, parenthetical. He comes upon a bit of memory. I put it in the blanks, the men and women. This is how I will place them. And remember them. If there is a blank, it will go on forever. Far enough into the ghosts. All the fucking everyone did is in our hair, the air about us. How political it is to be here, in the backyard in Queens, spread out like leaves, like buccaneers, pilfers in the rainforest.
That was a great piece from Vanessa. Later next month, she'll be joined by poets Angel Nafis, Willie Perdomo, Danny Simmons, and Sapphire at the 10th Annual Fort Greene Park Summer Literary Festival. But all that poetic talent aside, we really have to spend some time talking to the main literary talents that the community gathers to see year after year, the young writers from the Summer Youth Program. Joining us today are Tima and Tristan Regist and Anwin Burns. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, thank
Hey, good to have you.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, pleasure's mine. And Tima, you just finished high school, and you clearly have some post-high school plans. Can you tell us about them?
Well, I want to be a nurse in the near future, and I am attending the College of Staten Island. And so, yeah, I'm a nursing major. I actually just registered for my classes not too long ago, and I'm really excited to start my new journey.
Now, as you said, you're going to become, you're studying to be a nurse, but I presume you'll be taking literary type classes and you'll be working on your poetry. How do you think you will be able to integrate your future career as a nurse along with the idea of being a poet?
Well, I actually want to publish a book in the near future as well. So I feel like the experiences that I encounter in the hospital will inspire me to write alongside my job.
Well, that's just it. The idea that you will be able to take as inspiration, real life. I mean, you've been doing that all along, but taking this new chapter, I can see that your goal is to just keep integrating your real experiences and your observations into your poetry, and I assume you'll maintain that.
Definitely.
And so you're going to be featuring a poem of yours in a few minutes, and can you tell us a little about what inspired you to do this one?
Well, that poem was about my mentor. I was a part of a program called Girls Right Now, and her name was Joanne. That was my mentor, and we worked together for 2 years. And so in the mentoring program, we meet every week, and she'll help me edit my poems, give me advice. She edit my poems. So we were putting a book together as well. And so I was so inspired by her because she's such an amazing person, so I ended up writing a poem about her.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Tima has been writing with New York Writers Coalition for a while, so let's take a look at some of her work. Here is Tima reading the poem She Is.
And every time the clock strikes 12, her smile is profound, a new day to spread her positivity. Crescent moon-shaped eyes because she can only see the stars. Curly black hair that bounces in the wind with every stride she takes, heart so warming like an angel on earth. I never knew angels existed on earth. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but what about inspiration? She is my inspiration. She can turn a pessimist into an optimist because whenever I see the glass is half empty, her presence reminds me that the glass is always full, part water, part air. She is beautiful, inside and out. Her angel wings glide so elegantly in the wind. Her feathers touch the hearts of many. Her halo revolves around the world, making one rotation at a time. She is my guide through every writer's block tunnel, through every dark alley, for she is the light at the end of the tunnel. Through every good book with bad endings and through every bad book with good endings, through bad test grades to making life-changing decisions, through changing me from a naive adolescent into a developing young woman, through introducing me to poems other than love poems, she is a miracle worker. And every time the clock strikes 12, her smile is profound.
Tima, for sharing that with us. And let's talk to Anwin Burns now. So you've been writing since you've been 7, and you actually are a published writer. You're in the anthology, Making the Trees Shiver. Now, when you look back on your earlier work, do you feel like, oh, I wish I were the mature 12-year-old I am now?
Sometimes do. Sometimes look back and I'm just kind of like, ooh, I wish I could have been using better vocabulary, been more descriptive. As I am now, I wish I could have looked at the world through a different lens. And it's just different looking back and looking at what I write now.
But you have to admit that, on the other hand, you have to say, well, this is a 7-year-old's perspective, and you have a 12-year-old's perspective now, and you will get more comfortable with reading what you read. That's fair to say, right?
Yes.
So, Anwin, tell us about the piece you brought to share with us today.
This is a piece that was part of a school project that I did. It's a vignette in a novella that I wrote for English class, and I kind of took it and reamped it and that's what I read today.
And now the piece is called The Mini City, and what inspired that title?
The title is kind of a reflection of what I think about of Brooklyn now, what Brooklyn is to me now. And Brooklyn seems to be a city now, a city within a city, and that's what it is to me now.
So the idea that you have seen Brooklyn change and your relationship with Brooklyn has changed is reflected here. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And now, do you anticipate just becoming a poet professionally, or where do you see this? What do you see poetry doing for you?
Poetry has always kind of been an outlet. It's just kind of something that has always been there, and I've always used it to express myself.
Oh, great. Thank you. Now we'll hear from Anwyn Burns and her poem, The Mini City.
The Mini City. Where are you from? Brooklyn. New York? Yep. Sometimes I watch documentaries about how bad Brooklyn was back in the day and laugh. Not because someone was murdered or robbed, but because it's not the Brooklyn I know. The Brooklyn I know is filled with multi-million-dollar brownstones, multi-billion-dollar celebrities, and a steady stream of pop culture. So when I see Brooklyn in the 60s compared to now, I'm in awe of how changed it is. I don't mean every neighborhood is a regular Park Slope or Dumbo, but it's changed. About a year ago, I heard someone saying that Brooklyn is becoming a city. I found that somewhat comforting. New York City was no longer Manhattan and the other four boroughs. Brooklyn had made a name for itself. We had an identity. We were Brooklyn, and I was excited that we were becoming more than just part of New York City. Living in Brooklyn now is different from when I was little. I know that sounds weird. 13 years doesn't seem like a lot of time. But a lot can happen. For example, the Cherry Blossom Festival at the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens when I was younger was a pretty low-key thing. Hang out with a couple of friends on a blanket, enjoying the beautiful trees and flowers for a day. Now it's a huge 2-day deal with almost the entire city showing up. Don't get me wrong, I was ecstatic that one of my favorite events was being enjoyed by everyone. But
Thanks so much, Anwyn, for sharing The Mini City with us. And now we'll speak to Tristan Regist. You're not only a poet, but you also involve yourself in theater, and you're also an actor. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So, do you think separately when you act? Do you think they all come from the same creative place, or do you feel like you have to separate them in your mind?
I mean, I feel like I guess they all come from the same place, because like if I were to write about like someone getting angry, I will like think about how I would feel as an actor. If I was in that situation, I guess I'll write from that point of view.
And do you ever think that perhaps you would become like a playwright as well?
No, I don't. I mean, I never really tried playwriting. I don't think. I mean, I guess I will soon, but I want to stick to more descriptive writing and more poetry.
Oh, great! That's excellent. Thank you so much, Tristan.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again to all of our guests who joined us today, and we hope we'll see you at the 10th annual Fort Greene Park Summer Literary Festival on Saturday, August 23rd. This poetry extravaganza features Vanessa Gadd, Angel Nafis, Willie Perdomo, Danny Simmons, and Sapphire, plus all the young artists who write with New York Writers Coalition week after week. You can find us at the Prison Ship Martyrs Monument. Bring a friend, bring your kid, bring your dog, whoever. This will be the best free event you'll attend all summer. You also don't want to miss the after party at Greenlight Bookstore. There will be lots of cake, lemonade, and even grown-up grape juice. For more information about New York Writers Coalition's Fort Greene Park Summer Literary Festival, visit www.nywriterscoalition.org. I'm Gaylord Fields, and we'll leave you with Tristan's poem, Love. See you at LitFest.
I can't escape. I don't know if I want to. I'm not sure. Ever since I laid eyes on you, you caught me in the bright abyss of love. Now love flows through me as if it was my own blood. Those words, don't say those words. They pierce me like daggers, ripping and tearing, and ripping piece by piece of what I call a heart. The word love is imprinted on my heart, slowly fading away, but taking a piece of it away with it. I didn't want to, but you insisted. I didn't want to fall in the trap of love. I fight and fight my way out of this trap before. It's too late. Love surrounds me. Love is me. I said, don't say those words. They're like bullets shot from a sniper aimed for the center of my chest. You obviously have been practicing. You pull the trigger. Before a second has passed, the bullet has touched my chest. I feel the cold, cruel object again, slowly but surely puncturing through my heart. A chill runs down my backside. I shrivel up, hiding my salty tears, pushing my feelings down, way down, that with every step I slowly break down, but I keep moving. Stop with those words. I try to ignore, but they become drilled down into my skull. I didn't want to fall for the trap of love. My friends warned me about it, but I didn't listen. You say sorry, and I miraculously get fixed. But the rips and punctures you made have been repaired, but left scars. I can't escape. I don't know if I want to. I'm not sure.